Hello, my Facebook friends. It is Janine LaRue, and we are back again. We are live with what I've been calling this is Sunday Pride, LaRuelist Cafe, Sunday Pride. And so we have another show today for Sunday Pride. We've been interviewing some exciting people on this show. And you folks have been clicking through. Those of you who aren't watching it live, you're coming back to it every day and sharing it around. So I am just thrilled. And I want to remind you again, a lot of you make comments either on LaRuelist Cafe page or Janine LaRue, my own page. And I don't always see all of the comments in real time. So what I do, make your comments because I'm going to come back and address them. You know, I don't let anything go unturned. But today's guests, those of you in New Jersey, and then those of you throughout the country who know the name Jay Lassiter, you know that there are a couple things he is not. One thing, he is not shy. Secondly, he doesn't hold back his opinion. Sometimes Jay says some stuff and I'll say, Jay, tell me what you really feel. Because, you know, he just goes at it. He doesn't care. And he speaks truth to power. So we're going to spend a few moments today on LaRuelist Sunday Pride, Jay Lassiter. Now, I'm going to tell you a couple things about Jay Lassiter before he comes on. Because here's the deal. When Jay comes on, even though this is my show, I may not be able to say much because that's how he rolls. So I just kind of, he may end up interviewing me. I don't know. I never can tell what's going to happen with Jay Lassiter. So we're going to right now, while I have control of the mic, I'm going to talk. And then when Jay comes on, we'll see who will have control of the mic. Now I'm going to go through the little description I put up so that you'll know. I just want you to hear it. Sometimes you read stuff, it's better when you hear it. So, who the heck is Jay Lassiter? That's what we're going to find out today. We're going to find out some really intimate stuff about him. We're going to find out some funny stuff about him. He's going to talk to us about, well, let's just say here. One of the things is he's an opinionated charmer. Jay is a charmer, okay? And I didn't know you can be opinionated and a charmer at the same time. But pre-pandemic, Jay is so charming. The first thing I like to do is hug him, okay? And I'm going to get back to hugging him because I've had both of my shots. He is unapologetically out of the closet gay. Now, if you don't like it, click over to another page right now because he's going to tell you what he thinks about that, all right? He's a columnist for the very popular InsiderNJ, one of my favorite nonpartisan websites. And if you guys aren't on that website, you need to start clicking over. If you want to find out what's going on in New Jersey, you need to sign up and get on InsiderNJ. He's the principal of Lassiter Consulting, and he knows all about cannabis. And he doesn't use cannabis just to get high. I mean, he does get high, but he doesn't use it just to get high. He'll talk about that journey for supporting cannabis, starting out with medical marijuana and where we are today in New Jersey. So without further ado, I get to share my program with Jay Lassiter. Whoa. Hello.
How you doing, Janine? What a nice
I have
intro.
no complaints. Well, let me tell you, I have no complaints because the day is young.
Right?
Day is young. So you are in your beautiful home that I just love. What room are you in right now, Jay?
I'm actually in the living room. I couldn't find my little portable lighting device, and so I needed
Uh-huh.
to go to the room where the lighting was still good, and we got this nice long day to play with today. So I like to
Yeah,
think
that's why
I'm
we're
well
coming
lit.
on early.
Yeah,
So you
exactly.
can get out there and do what you want to do. Now, see, already, Jay, I told you I can't see all the comments that come on. So it depends on where people are commenting. But already one comment has come on where I know you have already misled some people.
Uh-oh.
because Tennille McCoy says, good dude. I don't know who told her that, but you know what? She's deputy commissioner, Department of Labor, so she thinks you're a good dude. We'll roll with it. And
Definitely.
Jeff Booker said, hey, Jay Lassiter. And
Hey,
hey, to
Jeff
you.
Booker.
You know what? See, this is what I mean. I lose control of my show. Jeff never said hey to me. Why did he? Jeff, you could have said, hey, Janine, how you doing? And by the way, how about that, Jay Lassiter? But that's okay, Jeff. I love you anyway. And he knows that I love him. So tell me about you. What's your
I,
day job? Do you have a day job?
I have a day, like a lot of people, Janine, my day job got a little bit turned upside down with COVID. I still have some clients that I do some kind of advocacy work and some media work with, but mostly I'm just doing my column and pushing my radical gay agenda. That's my day job.
Yeah, you
Basically,
do.
basically, my day job is to get paid to write about weed and my political opinions. Which honestly, if you would have told me that in college, I might have paid closer attention.
Yeah, well, you know what? Hello to Ernestine Smith. She's saying hello to you too, Jay. I don't think you've met Ernestine yet, but you better get to know her. So, now you were talking openly about weed
Yeah,
before. Now I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't smoke. I
yeah,
smoked weed. Now that I'm not gonna run for any more public office, okay? I can tell the truth.
yeah.
I smoked weed once in college
Okay.
in 1974. And the young lady who I smoked the weed with, she had taken me over to meet some of her friends. They told her to never bring me back again because I messed up all of their high. They said
Oh my
they
God.
said please don't bring her back. But you've been supporting weed for years, right?
Hmm.
Talk about that journey.
Well, first of all, I actually like smoking marijuana. You hear a lot of arguments for legalizing pot. You hear economic arguments, you hear social justice arguments, you hear people talking from the medical marijuana perspective. But I'm here to say that I am 48 years old. I don't drink alcohol very often. I don't gamble. I don't drink coffee. But I like to smoke cannabis for recreational purposes. And I don't actually think there's anything wrong with that. So there's that on the one hand. That's what brought me to the party. But what turned me into an activist was, being a very young man testing positive for HIV back in the early days in the 90s when the HIV meds were really brutal and you could not tolerate them. You literally could not, we overuse that word literally. One could not tolerate those early HIV meds without cannabis. And so when suddenly it became medically necessary for me, as opposed to my recreational proclivities, that's when kind of the activist bit came out because you would see people who are really medically frail and really fighting for access to their medical marijuana, and in many cases being locked up for it. And that was just not America I wanted to live in. And so, young man of 20-ish, 25 years of age or so, um, pot user, medical pot user, HIV positive. Um, that was when it clicked for me that listen, I was able to smoke medical marijuana as soon as I became HIV positive because activists before me had sort of laid all that groundwork. So all I had to do was sign up and go to the dispensary. Um, so it was my job to, ensure that sick people of any with any disease beyond HIV just had access to whatever cannabis they need. And if people want to smoke it on top of that, then they should have that too.
Are you still HIV positive, Jay?
29 years.
And
It's a long,
surviving. I love it.
yeah, I'm thriving. I'm actually closing the window. Hang on a second.
That's all right. I'm telling you, as soon as you want to invite me, I'm coming to your house. I
Please
don't
do.
have to spend the night or anything, but I'm coming. I have one
Yeah.
of my classmates. I haven't seen her in well over 50 years. In fact, 53 years, Mary Carney. She says, I see this is going to be interesting. And it is. You can't be uninteresting with Jay Lassiter. But
Thank
Jay,
you.
I am so happy that you're doing so well with HIV. I have lost, as you know, I've lost, my stepson. I've lost quite a few relatives and a whole bunch of friends to this. And back in the 80s, who in the world would have ever thought that we would get to the point that people can just not just survive, but thrive the way you are.
Miraculous. You know, when we're reflecting on how quickly those COVID vaccines got online and into your arm and into my arm, it's miraculous. And you think
It
of like
really
the
is.
brilliant scientists who are behind these medical advances, who to whom I owe my life, certainly. But see, that's the thing. It was so much about timing. You know, I became HIV positive in 1992. The HIV meds came out around 1994. I didn't actually need them until 1996. And so I kind of got the second wave of HIV meds when they had lowered the doses a little bit, so they weren't quite as wretched. But listen, there was a lot of activism that came out of the AIDS crisis. You know, we were watching our friends die on a daily basis, and that can be very motivating to, you know, get your political mojo on. And when you look at things like marriage equality and legalized marijuana, like, where do y'all think the roots of that were? That was the roots of that were the AIDS crisis. You know, those dispensaries popped up in LA and San Francisco. That was when the voters of California legalized marijuana back in, like, I don't know, maybe it was 95 or 96. The margins for that victory were run up in places like San Francisco and LA, which had been just devastated by the AIDS crisis. And these activists for drug reform in the earliest days of the AIDS crisis were all AIDS patients and their caregivers. And so when I look at this bonanza of marijuana that we're having, when I look at marriage equality and how this next generation of LGBTQ youngsters can take all of this, we fought so they could take this stuff for granted. But marriage equality, legalized marijuana, all that stuff has its roots in the AIDS crisis. And I'm glad that I, you know, lived to remind people of that, to be honest.
Well, you know, I have had some connection with the contact tracing project through the Department of Health. Not quite sure what my role is right now, but I did help put together the advisory board. And one of the things I said right away, if we're going to have people on the advisory board, we need folks who are in the HIV/AIDS community, because surely that population knew about all this stuff before anybody else did. And when you look at back in the day, you know, I remember with my stepson, people didn't know whether they should be able to come to my house and
Right.
whether they should drink coffee out of the whole stigma that followed that virus back then. And now you look at this where folks don't even know whether it was airborne. You know what I'm saying? And just the difference in the discrimination between the two viruses. How did you feel about all of that as things were gelling up this time last year?
So, listen, we always look to the survivors of the last plague for wisdom for the one we're going through. I think usually they're 100 years apart. So we were in a position where we had elders who had endured, and we had caregivers, and you know, those who managed to survive all that. And you know, guys like I can't think of it, the dean. His name is Perry. He's the dean of the Rutgers Social Public Health School, the School of Public Health. So that's a really big position. And he was around during the AIDS crisis, and it was so affirming. You know, he's a gay man, and he was around then, and he has those tales to tell. And as the dean of the, you know, the School of Public Health, he was in the media constantly. So much wisdom this man had, because of what he had actually already gone through. And you know, for anybody who was around during those days, who was paying attention, you can't help but find, you know, similarities between these two plagues. But I think I'm also struck by the differences. I remember once I wrote a column, and when I was sitting down, I was going to highlight all the similarities between HIV and COVID, and I ended up being struck. Like, the similarity that struck me most is how we took, and I was looking at the AIDS quilts that people took comfort in sewing, and I was looking at the masks that people were sewing to distribute to the caretakers. There was such a, this was back during early COVID when we were, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it. We were so scared. We were like scared to touch our mail, scared to touch people. That was familiar to me. The funny thing is, like, you have to engage in very specific behavior to contract HIV. You have to be having unsafe sex, or you have to be sharing needles. So it's a very specific behavior that you have to be doing to get it. So all of the things that people were afraid would transmit HIV, touching someone, sharing a meal with them, sharing a hug with them, sharing a joint with them, those things could give you COVID. And so when I was reflecting on the fear that animated this so early on, when we're like spraying down our parcels with bleach and alcohol before we even bring them in the house, that was the fear I think that triggered a lot of trigger, such a weird word to use nowadays. That was a fear that I think really struck a chord in a lot of people like myself, and probably you too.
You don't know how much you're speaking to my heart right now, because you're right. Back in the day, when I had my some family members and some of my students, when I was teaching at Glasper State, and I think about that, the two ways you could get it, HIV, is through sex and exchanging dirty needles, and now and all the paranoia against folks back then. And then now
Yep.
it's like, you don't know grandkids, you can't come over. I can't hug you. We all got to wear a mask. You're spraying everything. And I said, is this unbelievable? The differences. But you know what? We're progressing. We're learning. We're actually
For sure.
learning. And the other thing about it, Jay, not many folks I know this winter even had a cold. So, but for no other reason, when we talk about wearing a
Amen.
mask or anything, because don't cough anywhere out front, right? If you cough, it's like, oh my goodness, do you have COVID? So it's all fascinating. Now, let me ask you something. So, you guys are the maker of lists. There are a few of you
Yep.
out there, all of these wonderful websites, and I go up on all of them all day long. I want to
So
know
do
what's
I.
happening, and InsiderNJ keeps me in the know of a lot of things happening in New Jersey.
Good.
Why was it so important? Because you have the list: African Americans, women, the most influential people in the state of New Jersey. And I don't know how the hell I get on these lists. I mean, I don't know, but I end up on your list. But then all of a sudden you decided, wait a minute, tell us about the LGBT 100 out.
So the Insider NJ Out 100 Power List is a tribute to influential LGBT people in New Jersey politics. And it was one of those things where I remember my Pete, who's the general manager over at Insider, he and I were talking about, do you think we could actually come up with 100 people? And I put together a spreadsheet, because every good list starts with a spreadsheet. Actually, a lot of good things start with this spreadsheet now that I'm thinking about it. So once I got to about 70 and we really hadn't like worked that hard to get that point, I knew that I could do 100. And then I remember thinking, should we do an opening monologue for every list? And I was reflecting on, what it was like to be a youngster in the day with, a deadly disease. And the thing about COVID, we're all in this together, and that's the great thing. And with AIDS, we were not in this all together.
Mm-mm.
And when I reflect on that boy, that young man that I was back then, there was no way I could have imagined 100 politically influential people in the entire country. So, to put together a list like that for my state, for my home state, it was definitely one of the greatest, one of the most satisfying work projects that I've ever endeavored. And the thing is, I've actually been on those lists before. I mean, listen, I've been around for a long time. I've been around for most longer than most of the legislators. Not as long as you. You were
You're an
definitely
old soul. You really
it's
are.
been it's been about like 16 years since I've been prowling around Trenton. And so
Hmm.
I remember maybe about like 8 or 9 years ago, I landed on one of those lists, and it just felt great. I didn't realize it was going to mean so much to me, to be honest. And it was probably Max Pizarro. Whoever wrote my tribute wrote something so nice. It was just
Hmm.
so, it was like they kind of baked a little tiny cupcakes just for me. And I remember how that made me feel. And so, I get an opportunity to do that. It's great. We make money. We get to elevate names of people, who I want to put forward. I get to insinuate these issues into the conversation. I get to remind the people about the old days of AIDS. I get to remind the world that there are still people in the closet. Like, what would
Mhm.
this list look like if everybody in New Jersey politics was like out of the closet? Because somebody joked about that one year. So you should do an Empower list for everybody who's in the closet. And I mean, I laughed because it is funny, but then I thought how sad that is, because the closet is a really corrosive place. And this list is an opportunity to like talk about that and talk about all the light years that we've made. And there is still a stigma. There's still work to do. There's still people who are not living their life truly, who don't feel like they can. And
Well,
I actually think that,
I'm gonna remind you of something. Now, I want you to hold on to one thought, okay? We're gonna come
okay,
back to it because I want to know what Lou Magazoo means by cupcakes or brownies. So don't even go there yet. But I I just want to know. And Jade, you're right. The reason behind the list is great, but I gotta make you laugh because I want our
okay.
viewers to hear this. Do you remember the day that you called me to say that you were doing this list 3 years ago and it looked like I might be on the list for gay people? Do you remember my reaction? I will
I
tell
do
you,
remember.
my friends who I talk to now, my gay friends, because they look at me and they're like, "You were in the closet all these years?" I said, "I was so far in the closet." And I remember when you called me, I called my partner and I said, "Maria, there's a major problem." She said, "What is it?" I said, "I got a call from this guy who you haven't met yet, but he's over at InsiderNJ, and they're doing a list of the 100 influential LBGT people, and he told me I'm going to be on the list." She said, "Janine, you can't do that. That'll be the end of your career." I said, "I can't talk him out of this." I told him, "You can't do this." And he sends me to the firm to talk to the principal because they've already done the ad. And I remember when I called Trish, I said, "Trish, Jay told me that I'm going to be on this list of LBGT. I can't be on the list. I'm in the closet." She said, "Janine, it's too late. We've done the ad." I was like, "What? Because you've done a freaking ad? You can't just take my name out of the ad?" It's like, "No, we already congratulated you." And I was freaking out. I'm like, "Oh no." So when the list came out, and because I love you so much, I said, maybe I could hire somebody, put a hit on him or something. He won't be able to get the list out. And when the list came out, Jay, I will not ever forget the reaction on my Facebook page. I had something like 700 likes and comments from family members and people all over the place. But let me just fast forward this year. And I think I have told you this, and
Well, hold
I
on.
tell,
Before you fast
go
forward
ahead.
to this year, let me just say the most beautiful tribute, because listen, I've known that you're gay for a long time. I mean, we're friends,
Well, gay
but I
people have
also,
gaydar. Of course you knew it.
we got gaydar. But I also know that it's complicated for you, and I knew that it was going to be a little bit of heartburn to get you on that first list. But I also know that the most beautiful tribute I read of people sort of praising you and venerating you,
I know what
and
you're going to say.
was your son Samuel, Sam Frisbee, who is a commissioner in Mercer County, and he's your son. And y'all look a lot alike. Genetics is crazy like
Right?
that. But honestly, his tribute to you was so beautiful. And you reflect on how much work it is to put one of these together. And that's certainly something I will never forget. And I'm so grateful to give him the opportunity to give you that send up because that was a beautiful
Mm.
thing.
Well, you do know that for a while I was very homophobic. And I mean, not only in the closet, I didn't know I was gay. So I was very homophobic. And when my son was younger, he wanted to learn how to play the piano. And I said to him, "No, no, no, no," because a lot of the guys in the churches who are playing the piano are gay. "No, no, no, you can't do that." And he really wanted to play the piano. And I would not. Now, I'm a pianist. Shame on me. I'm a pianist. I play classical music as well as gospel. I would not let him get piano lessons. And so when he fast forward, when he got a little older on his way just before college, he asked me, he said, Mommy, I want you to hear something. I got something I want to show you. And he sat down at the piano and he started playing this song beautifully. And I said, where did you learn how to play the piano? And, you know, now what would mothers say? You're supposed to say, wow, that's
That's
great. Where did
beautiful.
you learn how to play the piano? And he said, my hands were anointed by God. He said, I've been praying over it. And now, fast forward, when I discovered the fact that I was gay, am gay, and that it's time for me to tell my kids. So I took my son to what used to be the Marriott in Trenton, right? And we're having a meal, and he's trying to figure out, well, why are we here? You know, so I said, you know, there is a reason that I wanted to have dinner with you. I said, so there's something I need to tell you. And so we go through the whole about an hour or so, and then I said, you know, sometimes people figure out something about themselves that, you know, it's tough really talking about it. And I'm like just stuttering. And finally he looks at me. He says, Mom, he says, you're gay. I said, what? I said, what did you say? He said, Mom, you're gay. And I said, I am. And he said, and I still never got piano lessons. So, you know, every time I listen to him, he plays for choirs all over the place. And every time I listen to him play, even this morning, you know, he plays every Sunday. And I'm like, oh man, he plays so well and he never got piano lessons. But that's my story.
That's a funny story. Mom, you're honestly, when you think about people having dinner in downtown Trenton, that feels like a generation ago.
Oh, now that's like ancient history there. I mean, will that ever happen again? That's what we
Well,
got to work on.
I mean, I know you remember because Trenton used to be a lot different than it is today, and that Marriott has been the site of. I mean, listen, I've never gone upstairs for anything, so I'm proud of that track record. But I've been in there for a lot of fundraisers and a lot of election night soirees, and sometimes to meet sources over the years. And I don't know, just thinking about that, imagining you guys having that over dinner at the Trenton Marriott
Wow,
was a very
right?
sweet memory.
That's a very sweet memory. You know, one of the things that we look at in New Jersey when we talk about going over to the Marriott, that's the place where legislators went. That's where we cut a lot of deals. A lot of advocates strategized and conspired there. Robin Camp was saying right now, which is true, we need some more, well, not more, we need some LGBT people in the legislature. We have
Right,
none. At least we don't have any who are out, right? So
right.
that we do need that.
Yeah. And you know, and we live in a state where, you know, grassroots doesn't have an outsized voice. I mean, there is a huge grassroots energy here, but this is a state that's dominated by you know, county parties, for better or worse, and we don't have that many gatekeepers, and many of the gatekeepers are you know, straight white guys. I love straight white guys. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong, but they tend to be the gatekeepers, and they tend to pick people who are like them because that's how people are. Because if I were the gatekeeper, I would pick only gays. We would have the gayest legislature in Trenton in the world. But as it turns out, we have the straightest legislature in the world because very, very rarely have any of the powerful machines anointed a gay candidate onto the, you know, onto the ticket, onto the party line. And so until that happens, we still have obstacles. We do have some gay lawmakers who are county commissioners, who are mayors, and who are, you know, we got more gay people running for office all the time, but it still seems like breaking through to the state legislature is a bridge too far for a lot of the county parties, including a lot of, you know, the Democratic parties. You know, it's going to be weird if the Republicans send a gay person to Trenton before the Democrats do. That's going to be really weird, Jenny.
Hey, look, the Republicans had when we look at this, and it's interesting that you raise it. The Republicans in New Jersey sent a woman to be governor, and the Democrats didn't.
Yeah.
It was a Republican. It was a Republican uh, female governor who put the first black on the Supreme Court in New Jersey, Justice Coleman, right? I mean, when you look at some of the things, and it's like, some days it's like, whatever, you know. I mean, it's and that's why I know people get frustrated with me. Yes, I'm a registered Democrat. I don't hide that, but I don't have any problem supporting Republicans too. If
For
there
sure.
is a Republican who believes in what I believe in, they got my support, they got my vote. And a person like now, I'll tell you, you may not even agree with this, but um, Christine Todd Whitman, her first time around when she got up for re-election, people looked at me like, Janine, are you serious? I'm serious. I'm going to head up the Democrats and Independents for the re-election of Christine Todd Whitman. They're like, well, why are you doing this? I said, because guys get a second bite of the apple all the time. They can screw up, they get it, or they can do well. No woman is going to serve one term. And that's what I did. Now we have a young woman on here. What would you tell a person who says she has multiple sclerosis? She doesn't know where to go to get
Ugh.
medical marijuana. She's in constant pain. She said her pain is out of this world. What do we tell her, Jay?
Well, fortunately, the chances of her getting, first of all, I'm sorry, because New Jersey, multiple sclerosis is a rough burden to bear, especially if you're not rich, you know, and especially if you don't have like a network of support. And, a lot of people don't, especially in this climate. You don't have your network because you can't like be around people. So having said that, my advice to her is she should get the medical marijuana card. And if she has any kind of income issues, that she can get that for actually pretty cheaply. She could like leave her contact information, and we can help her get her card if she needs to. If she's having an emergency situation, I can get the pot fairy to drop off some brownies while we sort this out. Because you know what? Listen, I never went without. I never went without ever. Somebody always the cup filled itself. And so, if we've got somebody who's watching us talk about New Jersey politics, who's in multiple sclerosis, who is suffering and has no access to cannabis at this point, we can like fix that for at least temporarily. So there's that. We got to hook her up with the card,
Mhm.
and then I would say she should just go back to the black market, because going to these dispensaries is total racket. The lines, the prices, crazy. So if you have a guy, a dealer, I would stick with that, because now that we have legalized, we're in the process of legalizing marijuana in New Jersey. The consequences for having weed that is acquired not legally are a lot less severe. And so if you're caught with weed, or if you're caught smoking weed um, in public, then you're not going to be arrested for it, presumably at this point. So even though it's not legal and it's not compassionate, it's certain to smoke yet, technically, because where would you buy it? There are no dispensaries, and there won't be any for a long time. The medical marijuana dispensaries that would be serving someone with multiple sclerosis. I mean, I'm imagining her going to one of those dispensaries a couple months ago during a snowstorm. You had patients lining out, medically frail people lined up outside. Excuse me.
That's
I'm
right.
actually getting emotional just thinking about it.
Hmm.
For hours, waiting to shell out $500 for an ounce of shitty weed, while while these politically connected dispensary owners are like marching to the bank, getting rich. And that's great. Listen, I want there to be a robust industry. I want people and investors. I want people to cash in on this, because it seems like this is sort of the promise of marijuana legalization. Is this going to have economic benefits? We're not locking people up for weed. We're saving money there. We're creating jobs. We're doing tax revenue. In Colorado, they were like filling potholes and buying school books with this stuff. And I think that's just basically great. Listen, if you want to take my marijuana revenue and spend it on that, great. But we're talking about somebody who's sick, who's paying sales tax on her medicine, which is not kosher in my book, and very, very rare. There aren't that many states where medical patients have to pay sales tax. And I believe that's ramping down, but I also believe that now municipalities can add a municipal tax to it. So the sales taxes are kind of going down and then going back up again. So it ain't cheap. This is not a solution for people who aren't rich. And so if somebody has multiple sclerosis, we're certainly going to be able to help her get her card for cheaply. You need a letter of diagnosis, and you need to bring it to a doctor who is certified to basically recommend you with the state. The process, actually, listen, Phil Murphy, I got a lot to say about him, but he has made a lot of improvements to the medical marijuana program. The bar was really low to begin with, and it's a lot easier to qualify. These cards are cheaper to get, and they last for 2 years. Now, I think for $10 or $20, you can get a medical cannabis ID in New Jersey. It lasts 2 years. I think that's a pretty good deal. You can keep your black market deal. You're probably not going to get arrested for doing that. That feels like progress. But the days where it's like in Colorado or in California, where sick people could go and their medicine is going to be subsidized so they can afford it, we are not there yet. We don't possess the compassion in New Jersey's medical marijuana program for somebody who is medically frail, desperate, and or poor. And that's a shame.
I have there are two Kathys here. One is a woman signed on from Maine, Kathy Wilson. She's a councilwoman there, and she was saying that there are 2 or 3 gay people in the Maine legislature, at least 2 other women, and then Craig Hickman in the Senate. And I'm not certain. I think Kathy, and I know you'll put in yes or no, but I think Senator Hickman is actually a black man. I think he's a farmer and married. So that's kind of fascinating. Your other Kathy, Ahern O'Brien,
Love her.
you know what she says. Go Jay.
Go,
Go Jay. What she does for people, right?
Amazing.
Just amazing with the hyacinth.
So people don't die of AIDS and they can fulfill their promise in this world, and that's the beautiful thing. And when you look at people like Kathy, who, listen, there were people like that on my journey. There were
Right?
Kathys all along the way, until I finally kind of learned to fly on my own and kind of sorted out my issues with my health and, with some drug issues that I had. It's been like 18 years ago since I went to rehab for meth. Listen, like, here's the thing. I want to say one little quick thing about being a drug user. One thing about being a drug addict, like, okay, so people do drugs because they are in pain. That's pretty much the only reason. Their pain will differ. The sources are different all across the board. But,
And it doesn't have to be physical pain. It could be emotional pain.
Mostly it's emotional pain, yeah. Because their lives are devoid of grace, because they don't have hope, because their lives are fucked up, basically. That's why people, pardon my French, use drugs. Listen, I know that there are people who they party and they do drugs and they do that because they want to feel good and they want to get high, and that's fine. There's recreational users and they have the tools to, tie one on once in a while, once a year, go to Vegas, stays in Vegas, whatever, however people choose to party. Most people have the tools to do that. If they party once in a while, it's only that. It's a once in a while kind of thing. Like me, I like the way it made me feel. I like the void it filled in my life. And I did drugs because I was in pain. And it was weird because people would ask me that all the time. And I would always try to give them like a really clever answer. Oh, it runs in the family, and gay people are predisposed, and blah, 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 blah. And that's all true. But the truth is, I was in pain. And so I needed to figure out the tools to manage my pain. And that's what rehab did to me. And it's funny because I went out of rehab, like basically straight into New Jersey politics.
Right?
And so I remember like thinking, is this what sobriety has in store for me? All those characters. It was right around when McGreevy and all that thing happened with him. And that was one of the first things that happened when I was new. And then we got the Senate president took over the governorship, and that was just such a story. And I was
Right?
a very young little twink right out of rehab, trying to cut a little niche in New Jersey politics because blogging was new, and all you had to do was call yourself a blogger, and people were like, oh yeah, come on in.
Well,
They
you
were
were
dazzled by that
so
word.
opinionated too. I mean, that's one of the things. That was your tipping point in a good way, because you were opinionated. And what I'm finding, and I'd like to hear your take on this. People want honesty in politics. They want people to be candid. They don't want all the BS and all of the politically correct, right?
You are so right. And also in life, and I spent a lot of time giving people like the bullshit polished version of the story that I thought would entertain them or amuse them or be worthy of their time and attention. But like the most interesting story was like the ugly truth. It
Mm,
was the unvarnished, it was the doubts and like the scar tissue and the I've reflected on this and I was wrong, that kind of stuff. That's
mhm,
what they want to hear. But instead, people are so committed to sort of polished, perfect, unwavering, strident, confident, self-assured. Nobody wants your self-assured. They want your like racked with doubts.
mhm, mhm.
That's what they want to hear about.
Well, I'm gonna tell you something, because I've had a lot of people say to me, Janine, you've been around for a while, because I've been in this business since the late 70s. Since the late 70s. There is only one legislator. We have 120 legislators and a governor. 121. All right. Only one out of the 121.
Let me guess. So this is the oldest serving lawmaker in Trenton then we're
This is
talking
the,
about.
well, not the oldest, because
The
some of
longest
these
serving.
people, this is the longest serving legislator in New Jersey's legislature. Only one
Okay.
was there when I started lobbying. Who was it?
Could it be Dick Cody?
Could it be? He's the only one. And let me tell you how close our anniversary dates are. Dick Cody was sworn in January of 1982, and
Wow.
I became a lobbyist in August of 1982. So I almost beat him in the door. So the
Wow.
reason I raised that, because when I started lobbying, there were almost no Black lobbyists. I mean, we had Ollie Bartlett, we had God rest his soul, we had Ted Reed, God rest his soul. We had folks who were in a union like Carol Graves and all, but I was there for my livelihood. And as a little short Black woman with a great big afro, it really was kind of fascinating because, I didn't even lobby these guys standing up. I mean, how are you going to be 4'10" and a half, 4'11" inches standing up with these folks who are like 5'10", 6 feet tall? So I didn't even lobby them standing up. I waited till the legislators sat at their desks and I come lean over, Senator, I'd like to talk with you about this, whatever. So folks have said to me, Janine, you have been around almost as long as dirt. How do you stay? Well, you know how I stayed? When I first came into the legislature, Jay, this crazy guy, I mean, he's not crazy because I don't want to say his name that he's crazy and then I start getting hate mail. But John T. Malloy writes this book, Dress for Successful Women. First of all, doesn't that sound stupid?
Yeah.
The guy's going to write a freaking book about
For
how
real.
women can dress for
I bet
success.
he's a straight guy too.
Probably. I don't even know if he's still living, but I bought the book. I read it twice. I went out. He said, all these women, we should have a navy blue suit. We should have a gray suit. We should have a black suit. We should wear white blouses. I did all that crazy stuff. We should have an expensive attaché case. I went out and bought a really expensive attaché case and little black pumps. So I had the black pumps. I had the chocolate pumps. I had the gray pumps. But guess what? I found out when I walked into the legislature, I don't know how this happened, Jay. I was still a Black woman. I was still a Black woman. And what they were going to think of me, they were going to think of me. So what I did was I took those freaking gray, navy blue, black suits off. I put on African ethnic, as you know, I wear a lot of bright colors. Folks see me coming to the legislature. Nobody
Exactly.
can miss me. And I'm not going to be politically correct about anything because at the end of the day, it's about winning. And my
Exactly.
whole thing, if people can sit there in seats of power and BS you, then I can sit
Totally.
there out of a seat of power and tell the truth and get what my clients need. And that's what I think people want to hear now. They're tired of the BS. So,
I love a navy blue suit, but I feel the same way. Like when I try to do that Brooks Brothers cookie cutter, first of all, that ain't me anyway.
right?
I feel like I have a little bit more of a flair than that. I like to look good. Everybody likes to
Oh,
look
yeah.
good and feel
Well,
good about
look, you
themselves.
always look good. That's the one thing about you.
Thank you, Janine. I admire your
Really.
fashion sense a lot. Here's the thing, like we are, we're not part of the dominant culture. And sometimes clothes can be like armor. And when I'm in a room and I'm surrounded by a bunch of powerful straight men with bigger titles than I have, and more expensive watches than I've got, and I have to use everything I've got.
Hmm.
And sometimes that is to be impeccably turned out. I mean, God, who wants to like have to dry clean your clothes and go through all that shit? And it's uncomfortable and but there are some times when you have to send a message with your clothes. It's like I'm not trying to be like you.
Exactly.
I would beat you at that game anyway. I look better at just and it's crazy that we're talking about this superficial stuff. But when I'm feeling insecure and when I'm feeling out of place, and I'll go in there with like my cashmere turtleneck under that suit, and while everybody else is wearing their like stripes and blah 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 blah, or their
Right.
button up, and I
Oh, I had a
want
whole
to
bunch of
stand
pinstripe
out.
suits too. A whole bunch of pinstripe suits. Oh yeah, I
So
spent all that money.
listen, if you're gonna if I have like some of those elements that all men have to have in their wardrobe, but I like bright colors too. Listen, I
Right.
think pink. See, pink has so much weird connotations to people. It's like, is it a girl? Are you gay? Pink flatters everyone.
It
Black
does.
people, white people, old people, young people. It looks good on men. It looks good on women. And I mean, you walk in with a pink shirt to Trent, and everybody else is in their white, their navy blue, and they all have the same. I mean, it's like a uniform.
Oh
And
yeah.
so I have decided that wearing that uniform is not accomplishing my goals anyway. And like the way, it doesn't. I want to be me. Sometimes, actually, you and I have that in common,
We have it in
I guess.
common. And I love it when people say to me, well, they say, well, Janine said blah 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 blah, and you know how she says things. They say, well, that's Janine. Well, you know what? That's great. If I have a brand, that's Janine. Some folks should try to be that's Janine because that's the way it is. Now, I want to ask you something else. You're getting ready to come out with a cannabis list. What is it that you look for in
I
these
am.
um
Well,
and I
first
don't
of
want to
all,
know
the
who's
first
on the
thing I
list.
look at is longevity. Uh, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry. We had a little bit of a delay, so I started talking over you. My bad. This will be the second and probably the last cannabis list that I did. I did one several years ago. It was sort of like a one-off, and that was my way of nudging. It was during kind of a fallow season of the political. I was actually working on over the summer, and there wasn't a whole lot of other stuff going on. I put NJ Weedman on the top of the list because I feel like he sacrificed more to move the
Yeah.
needle. I think he truly is influential, and if we would have been listening to what he said, and he pisses people off because he has dreadlocks and he's not going to conform, and he's not having it. He's not having the system. He is wholesale rejection of the system. And when I put him at number one, that was my way of wholesale rejecting the system. But I also think that I spent 800 words describing why I thought he deserved to be on the top. So, these are judgment calls. A lot of times you can look at metrics like how long has this person been around? How many, bills did this person sponsor? There are some things that you can look at and kind of make a list and use this in their favor. But I rely actually a lot on nominations from other people. I'm very transparent about the process. I keep, again, I keep these spreadsheets so I can keep track of who I've used in the past. And, I want to give them a different individual tribute every time. I don't want to recycle the tributes because, again, I remember what it felt like to have a unique tribute that one time. It was so special to me. And now that I'm writing them, I want people's moms to frame the shit and put it on their refrigerator. I hear those kinds of stories. I remember, oh God, I can't believe I'm gonna get emotional about this. It was, I was looking up someone's obituary who passed away recently because I wanted to posthumously put them on the list, this cannabis list that's coming up. It's a guy by the name of Jeff Oakes, and he's worked to his dying day, dying of cancer, to make New Jersey's program better.
Mm.
And I wanted to look up just details. I was just doing research basically, and I came across his obituary. And in his obituary, they actually included my tribute in his obituary. I was so moved by that his family found enough solace in my words that they would include that in his death notice. And I didn't
Mm.
actually know that that had happened. And it was just a wonderful reminder how consequential these are to people, how much it means to people, because for a lot of them, this recognition is the only thing they get. So
Yeah.
there.
Well, I'm going to close with this because you know how you have changed my life. And I wanted you to come on LaRuelist Cafe so that I could say thank you. Because I stayed in that closet, and even though you and Max and Pete dragged me out of the closet,
And Trish.
in my wildest dreams, I never thought that I would be number one on that list. And when I got the phone call from, I had a conference call with one of my colleagues, Beth. And when she called, I picked up the phone and I said, "Hey, Beth," and she said, "Hi, number one." And I said, "Number one?" And she said, "Yeah, you're number one." I said, "Beth, what are you talking about?" She said, "You didn't see the list come out with InsiderNJ?" And I just started sobbing because my partner was dead. And here I was, number one on this list. And and Beth said to me, she said, "Janine, I'm going to hang up and let you get a moment." She said, "Whatever we had to talk about with clients, it can wait till tomorrow." And I remember pulling up the list on my iPad and going through it and just crying. I mean, for about an hour or two. And after looking at the list, I said, "You know what? The way you can honor her and the way you can earn being number one on this list, you need to find out more about the lifestyle that you spent 22 years in the closet running from." And because of you, Jay, because you were determined there was going to be such a list in New Jersey. And I don't know if any other states have given that kind of recognition to LGBT people. And knowing, as you said, 100, number 100 are those who are still in the closet. Because of what you did for me, I I will say that Renee, can't remember her first name, but she's a councilwoman in, is it Pam Renee, down in
Pamela
Asbury
Renee.
Park? Yes. She invited me to join a group of lesbians. And when I joined, it was 23,000 on the list. I joined in November. Now there are 31,000, just that little time. And then I joined another list of Black older lesbian women. Well, that's an oxymoron, but Black older lesbians. And that's a very, very interesting list. And then I joined a Friday Zoom group of women who are, you must be at least 70 years old. And these women are between 70 and 89. And I sign on every Friday at 7 o'clock. And these women are from all over the world. And it's because of you that I was able, in Maria's death, and I don't like to say her death, but her transition, I was able to truly find myself and be comfortable in my skin. And I said, how better could I thank you guys what you did? And my good friend, I call him Sonny Boy, Eric Williams, he remembers the days when I was homophobic because he was my son's boss when my son was at Howard University. And he's on, he said, such a real conversation with you two. New Jersey is better because you guys are there. Thank you so much, Eric. And he is a survivor of cancer. They thought he would have been dead years ago, and he's still fighting. But Jay Lassiter, now my friends and viewers know what I know, how very cool you are, how very awesome you are. You're one of my heroes. And I've spent a lot of hours with a lot of people in LaRuelist Cafe, but today has been one of those special ones.
I feel the same way about you, Janine. You know, like having you as a friend and as a mentor. Listen, I've brought some serious stuff to you over the years, and I was like, sis, I don't know how to handle this. You know, I need counsel. I need your wisdom. And it's usually I don't know, you're always busy. I usually drop it
I
in your
am
lap,
always busy.
and you clear that out, and you make time for me and to help me. And um, listen, this turned into mutual admiration society, but like one of the reasons I nudged you out of the closet is because I knew how much more powerful you would be like in full flight. And here you are.
Here I am, and you know, there's a guy on here, Jeremy Lintz. I don't know if you know him, but if you don't, I'm going to connect the two of you.
Good.
Um, brilliant, brilliant, brilliant guy in the arts, and my
I do
favorite
know
son.
him.
Oh, you do know him?
I, we're
We were
Facebook
on
friends.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah. Well, we did some. We had an interview last week together, and I have to tell you, it was really great. My favorite son has signed on. As you know, Sam's my only son, and he said, "Thank you, Jay and Mom, for changing the world," and absolutely love him. Thanks, Paula and Ernestine, all of you, Kathy. We are signing off. I could sit here and talk
This is
with
fun.
Jay Lassiter all freaking day. I just love you so much.
I love you too, Janine.
Have a wonderful day
You as
and go get
well.
some more of that sun. Love you.
I
Bye
love you. Bye.
bye.